Hello and welcome back to Can I Make a Hit podcast. If you don't know what's happening in my current thread, then this might sum it up for you, because I remember opening an email very, very recently, and at the top it said it was from the Innovation in Speaking conference. And only a few days before that, I'd put in my pitch to speak at their event. And I said I could talk about how speakers could use podcasting techniques to promote their speaking business. And now the email had arrived to say whether I'd been accepted or not. I opened it, and well, I'll tell you in a second. The question is, should you, as a podcaster like me in this test, try to become a public speaker? You have a topic, right? We all have topics, that's why we're podcasting. So could we be expressing it as public speakers as well in front of a live audience? I'm currently looking at this question on the audio podcast, as you know, and also I'm putting these videos on YouTube too. Last week, I spoke to TEDx speaker Liam O'Neill, who gave so much information about this, and I am still digesting what he said. I hope you found that really useful as well. But what I wanted to find out next was someone who had experience of both speaking and organising events as well, and get their views on whether us as podcasters should be trying this. So I went onto Facebook, as I've mentioned before. It's a great place to find out about public speaking. And I went onto a Facebook group and I started talking to this amazing lady called Patricia Curty. We started talking and I realized I had to get her on the show. I'm absolutely delighted because she is joining us right now. Let me bring Patricia up and say hello to you, Patricia. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am feeling so happy to be here today.
I think this is going to be so interesting because I think you can add so much insight. You have been public speaking for years. I mean, just give us a little bit of background so we can get some context before we get into the really meaty stuff.
Since I was 6. Yes, okay. I remember with my mother in Brazil, I used to go around and organizing events with every kid in the neighborhood and say, okay, everyone's going to go on the stage and speak now. Yeah, I was about 6.
What was your first topic? Come on.
Oh, I used to talk about I remember my first topic was the Charlie's Angels episodes. I used to dress like Farrah Fawcett. She was my big, I was like, okay, I am her. Now I'm impersonating her on the stage. And I'm going to say that we are a group of girls here and we have Charles over there, kind of a theater. You know, I always mix a little bit. So for me, public speaking was an essential part of my life since I was a little kid. And I see the world this way. I see the world as a big stage where we are all there playing somehow.
Well, tell us about the Gallery of Ideas in a second. But I mean, let's go straight into the first question, which is this a silly idea of mine to say, could podcasters become public speakers?
Well, it's a step closer. You are already speaking, right? So when you are podcasting, you are using your voice, which is a powerful element of speaking. There are many elements of public speaking, which is, first of all, you have to write your content, then you have to speak, then you have to perform. Now, when we talk about public speaking, actually, is being on the stage. Let's say you are in front of a live audience, and the preparation for that is much harder than just for the podcast or for a blog or for a video. So preparing yourself to be in front of an audience, if you are podcasting, actually, you have a big advantage because you are used to listen to yourself. You know more or less how to structure your thoughts. And so for me, if you are podcasting and if you'd like to go on the stage and speak, you are in a good way, in a good direction. So you should definitely try it.
How different do you think it is? It was quite interesting talking to Liam last week, who was saying that with public speaking, you've got to tell more stories. You've got to watch the audience and see how they react. You also obviously can't edit out those mistakes as well. So how different do you think it is? And what do you think people should be aware of if they want to try public speaking?
Well, it's very different. Yeah, I mean, having someone in front of you, one person, is already different. Now, can you imagine like having 20, 100, 1,000 people in the room? So when you are, and plus that is the stage effect that I call. As soon as you step on the stage, something happens. It can be a magical moment. It can be a terrifying moments. It depends how you take it. So we, in our school, public speaking school, Goya Academy, we teach our students, for example, to do a lot of exercises before, during, and after. That is like a whole process of public speaking that is very different from podcasting or even on the radio or interviewing someone, even if it's one-on-one live, live interview. Yeah.
So you think it is quite, so you think it is quite a different thing. I mean, Liam was saying as well is that you shouldn't just go, I'm a podcaster and therefore I can speak. And that's pretty clear from what you've just said. No way. But it is
No,
at least a foundation to build from.
absolutely. What most people are terrified of listening to themselves on a recording. One of the exercises that most schools teach, most public speaking coaches teach, is to record yourself. How many times you've heard coaches and teachers say, record yourself, right? And it's key. So for the podcaster, that element is already out of the equation of the problem. Let's say it's easy because they're used to listen to their own voice. Yeah.
Okay, so what skills do you think, or how should a podcaster approach public speaking then? If they've got the topic, how can they start to adapt to that and start thinking, how you could actually turn that into a speech that you could deliver? Because maybe you're doing interviews at the moment, you're talking about, I don't know, let's say animal welfare, and you're interviewing all these experts. How could you turn that into a speech where it's no longer an interview, it's you talking to an audience and make that interesting? I mean, where would you even start with that process?
Well, it's for me, in my humble opinion, it's all about brand awareness. It has to start, you have to create a brand around yourself. That's the only way to start getting speaking engagements. If you are already someone, let's say, that is popular or influential, out there, it's so easier to get a speaking engagement and to actually get paid quite a lot. If you are a politician, a CEO of a company, someone that invented a new medicine, if you have something like this behind you, your story is already you're going to probably get paid a lot. If you don't, that doesn't mean you cannot speak on big stages. You need to work a lot on your persona, on the brands, on the story around you. So the podcast is only one vehicle, but you have to work with everything else that you can around yourself, and then just go out there and ask. That's as simple as that. We forget sometimes how easy it is. It's just ask. You go and ask people, I'd love to speak on your event. In the beginning, you're going to do a lot of free speaking, and then eventually you're going to start getting paid, and then eventually you're going to feel like you deserve to get paid more and more, and then that's how it goes.
So do you think it's a good idea to actually try and do it if people are interested in trying and do public speaking as a podcaster? Do you think it's a good way of marketing? I mean, you're doing stuff on YouTube as well. You're doing a lot of different platforms for promoting your brand. So do you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, podcasting is just one vehicle, but you have to be everywhere these days. I mean, you have to be on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, in every possible platform, on Tumblr, on Pinterest, everything that is out there. When you create your content, you make sure you just share as much as possible, right? Before the internet, we couldn't do like this cross sharing that we do these days. We would have to probably tell somebody in our company that person likes, and then they would talk to somebody else, and then eventually would go to that big agency that maybe they would go and pick us because they liked our content. Today, you can pick yourself. You don't have to wait anybody out there to pick your content. Look at Rick Gervais. I love his story.
Oh, yes.
Rick Gervais, he tried so many shows, television, nobody would pick him. And then he decided to create his own show and do his own thing. And then, eventually he took off. So that's the thing today. We are lucky that we are living in a generation right now that we can pick ourselves and put ourselves up there. Now, if you've tried for 1 month and it didn't work out, come on, try a little harder. But if you tried for 2 or 3 years and it didn't work out, maybe maybe you should try something else. So it's a question there for you just to see how long you should perceive and have the consistency and know when to quit, for example, if you're not really good at it. Yeah.
You made this great point about actually reaching out to events as well, because one thing with podcasting is that all you have to do is pick up the microphone and you can be on iTunes by the end of tonight. Even if no one likes what you're doing, you can still broadcast. But if you want to talk at an event, you've got to actually get in the door and get the opportunity to do that. So, I mean, you've been on the other side of it as well. You've both spoken and you've organized events. So what is the big thing that a podcaster should think about before even approaching an event? What is the biggest mistake people make when they approach events?
For a podcaster that wants to speak at someone else's event? Yeah. By going with the I in front and say, hi, I would like to, I am good. can bring this to you. It's not about, I don't know who you are, what are you going to do for me? So, the famous, what is in it for me as an event organizer? What are you bringing to the table? So for me as an event organizer, if you come to me and say tomorrow, let's say, and you tell me, Patricia, I'm going to promote the heck of this event before, during, and after. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to share everywhere. I'm going to send to my emailing list that is like over 10,000 people. I'm going to promote every day on social media. And can I speak in your event? I'm going to say, why not? So it's right there. Yeah. People don't know how to approach these things. And they go, oh, I have a great story to tell. Okay, what is it? It's not the right way to go.
That was really interesting. One of the things that Liam was saying was that a lot of people go to events, and lots of different events, and they say, I've got my talk. And they just think that someone's going to want to take it. And so one of the things I did when I approached this particular event that I reached out to as part of this test was I looked at the website, and I was saying to Liam this last time, I copied the whole website into a Google Doc and then removed all the fluff and just came up with what they said the event was about. And then I thought, well, what can I get? And tried to pick an example of how I could answer each of those points. So this is about innovation in speaking. And it's like, well, what do I know about technology that could answer each of those points they raised? And that pretty much built my pitch. So when I actually reached out to them and I said, well, look, this is what I could talk about, I basically just answered their website rather than going, I've got to talk about something else. Would you like it? Yeah, and he was saying that a lot of people do it the other way around. They don't look at the event. They just go, oh, I've got to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Right. I mean, I'm being really blunt here and saying,
please do.
Yeah.
No, please do.
Just because you're going to promote my events, but that's the reality. Nobody wants a speaker. I don't care how famous you are, that's going to just go there for 10 minutes and disappear. That is not going to engage with the audience. That is not going to actually talk about our events and be interested in where they are and with the people they are. So I never have someone on the stage, on my stage, that would not care. I rather have someone that is not famous whatsoever, maybe doesn't have a great story. It's we can actually, in fact, most of the speakers that came to speak at the Gallery of Ideas here in Barcelona, they're not famous at all. We had to help them coach, help them to get to their ideas into paper, and then from paper into the real thing. So it's not about, for us, it was really bringing together in the room an audience that is interested in listening to something like that, and the speakers that are there interested in getting to know that audience. So that exchange, it was the big magical moments for us, that really made us happen in Barcelona, and more places and big names wanted to be around us, because everyone that went to our events, they were just like, wow, that's amazing. The energy is so amazing. So it's really the mix of having the people interested in each other. If you have an audience that is not interested in what the speakers are going to say, it's not going to work in the same way or the way around.
You actually had a fantastic video that you put out on YouTube the other day where you were talking about the different styles of speakers. And you mentioned one particular style, which was the facilitator. And I found this really interesting because you were talking about, rather than just delivering a lecture at people, it was the kind of person who is almost giving a talk which is engaging the whole audience. So not just asking them the standard question, that kind of thing whereby it's like, does everyone think? And where you put up your hand, which is such a cliche now. But you're actually, it's such a cliche. But you're actually talking about how you're almost giving a talk with the audience. And that was really interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. When I mentioned Tony Robbins, I remember my husband saying, why are you talking about Tony Robbins being a facilitator? I'm like, oh yeah, he's a big facilitator. He's not only a motivator, obviously #1 motivator in the world, but he's also a facilitator. He manages to get everyone in the audience, like, feeling like they are part of the event, they are part of the talk, they are there with him. And that's a facilitator. It's not about the facilitator that we have in mind sometimes as a speaking style, is that person that is delivering information, showing the data, facilitating the data. No, that is, I don't even consider that a speaking style, to be honest. It's so boring that is not in my on my plate. The facilitator that I'm talking here is that kind of person that is able to give information that is useful and engaging and acting and persuading and sharing those ideas with the audience and bringing them together. And that's the facilitator. That is not easy to do, and not many people are able to do that.
Well, that was it. I mean, it really got me thinking in itself, because I think you think as a public speaker, you just go on there and deliver the best you can, some information, or you do like what I'm trying to do with this particular one, which is defined as a masterclass. So you're teaching people things as well. But you kind of imagine a public speaker as a keynote speaker who goes on there, says something inspiring, exciting, and leaves again. And actually, there's an awful lot more to it than that.
And you have to know also when, if you are doing a seminar or a workshop where you can get people doing certain things, fine. But if you are a keynote speaker in an event that it's a little bit more formal, come on, don't go on the stage and first thing you say, I want everybody to smile, to stand up and look at each other. Like, this is not a workshop exercise. I don't even know who you are. What the hell? I already dislike the whole thing. So first of all, come on the stage humble, looking to give, not to take. Because that's also another approach that many speakers do. They go there to take the applause, to take the momentum for them. It's not about them, it's about the audience. So asking people just, raise your hand, now, jump, now, I know, but being on the stage, you have a lot of power. It's a powerful position to be. You can ask people to do things. But hey, people not necessarily will do it because they like you. They will do it maybe because everybody is doing it, fine. But they're probably going to hate you for that. So I wouldn't recommend to just ask people to stop moving and doing things unless you are Tony Robbins.
Yes.
You already have that reputation. They know they're going to get there. And there's going to be a lot of things happening, shaking. And again, it's a seminar. It's a workshop that maybe it's 3 weeks, So, but in a keynote that you have maybe just 20 minutes, don't leave the audience just silence listening to you. Make sure you get to their heart and take them in a journey with you somewhere and make them think.
Let's talk about promoting your podcast. Now, it's almost kind of slightly contradictory in a way, because we've just talked about the fact that you've got to give an audience. But at the end of the day, you're going to be at an event, particularly if you're not being paid for an event, you're going to be there for a reason. Some people are trying to sell products, sell courses and stuff like that. But we're talking about podcasting here. If you're just trying to promote your podcast, how can you get that into a talk without sounding like you're just going, oh, please follow me because it would be really nice if you did? Both you and I have a background in journalism as well. And we know how people can put a promotional message within a news story and make it sound like it's just part of the story. So how, as a podcaster, could I promote my podcast within a talk and still make it interesting? What do I need to think about?
Oh, Rick, there's so many techniques that you can use. I for hours just talking.
In which case, let's get the basics. Go on. What's your initial thought?
Yeah. Well, there's the subliminal message that you can go out. That's a great technique. I use a lot in pitching. If I'm pitching an idea and I have only 15 minutes, let's say I need a sponsor, right? So I'll throw that word sponsor everywhere all the time as much as I can, and subliminal into the message. Not really saying, "Hey, I need a sponsor." So the subliminal message, if in your talk, if you can do it, is a fantastic way of.
So in that, if we take that to a literal, you would basically use the word podcast quite a few times.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And you would use your podcast as an example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The way I do my podcast, when I tell that story, and then, the other day on my podcast, you don't know what happened. It was amazing. So that's the subliminal message, and you are promoting. Yeah. You can also do the reverse psychology. I love this one. And if you have as they say in Spanish, the cara dura, like if you have the face to do it, you can say at the end, like, okay, now I'm going to talk about my podcast. I'm going to sell it like crazy. So you please don't listen to this. It's very crazy. I'm going to be promoting like, so as soon as you tell someone, do not do it, what do they want to do? They want to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's like with kids, don't touch here. They wanted to touch, right? We do that a lot on YouTube with the highlights or the headlines that we use. No, do not watch this. Do not do this. People are like, what? I want to do it. So yeah, it's a great way to say. Imagine on the stage if you have the face to do it. Like, okay, now I'm going to sell my podcast. Please leave the room.
I was watching a talk the other day of a lady who was selling her public speaking course, and her whole talk sounded like when you sort of listen to it casually, it sounded like she was just giving you information about how to do public speaking. And yet when you actually thought about what she said, all she was basically doing was running through her course and the key parts of it. And I'm not criticizing her for that. I'm just saying that was a brilliant way of doing it, because you never felt like you were being sold to. You just felt like you were getting information. And I can see how that works.
Yeah, that could work. Again, it depends on your speaking style, right? What's the speaking style? How do you, what is closest to you from the examples that I gave on the video that you watched the other day? What is your speaking style?
I don't really know yet, to be honest, because I've not done public speaking before, beyond a couple of very small little things. I mean, I'm more likely to do the monologue type thing. And I know because that's what I'm used to doing as a broadcaster. I'm not used to getting a reaction from an audience. And also because this particular event I'm doing is a virtual event as well, rather than having a physical audience in front of me, I think, again, that's going to make it slightly hard. But it's like, as I'm working on it, I'm really thinking, well, how can I make people think of things? How can I trigger thoughts in their heads? How can I ask questions in a live poll that will actually make people engage with it? And it's not natural to me, but I'm aware that I've got to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I think you have a little bit of the entertainer style. Yeah. And maybe if the event is a little bit more formal, then you go into the commander style, a little bit more formal. But you can mix both. And being English, you have the advantage of playing with the words in a way that nobody else in the world can do it. Only English people can do that. That crazy humor.
Not necessarily in a good way, no.
Yeah, but come on. I love it. I love the English humor, jokes. The way sometimes it takes me ages to understand. And then when I understand, I'm like, oh my God, that's really...
We're very sarcastic, but I'm aware you have to. Yeah, but I think you have to be careful with that, though, don't you? Because particularly if you're doing a virtual event, you don't know where people are coming from.
That's the other thing. If you are in the public speaking arena, forget about it. You can't have that mentality, Rick. You have to think at the moment you are being exposed, to the world. You have to be yourself and really embrace that persona. Yeah. Because if you start trying to please everyone, forget it. It's not going to happen. You're going to get depressed and you're going to disappear before you even start. Right. So if you wanted to be a public speaker, you have to be thick-skinned and you have to, stay behind your words. And if you are kind of a sarcastic person, go with it. If you are like Jordan Peterson, look at Jordan Peterson. He was for a few years on the scene. Everyone was talking about him. He was out there because of his style of speaking was so, I don't know, candid, so direct. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have any drama whatsoever in his face. And people were attacking him about feminism, about all the difficult topics. And he would just stay like, well, I disagree. I think I blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I stay behind my words and it's fine. And obviously he's a very articulate speaker and he knows how to speak very well. And because he's been doing that for so long as a teacher that he's been in the scene of teaching, which helps. Like if you are podcasting, you are already on that scene of speaking. So all this is a good basis to start with. And then jumping to the public speaking arena is just having a good argument, being articulate and being able to provoke certain emotion in the audience. Because also just speaking about normal things, nobody's going to pay attention. Now, if you provoke a little bit the audience, then you've got their attention. And it takes thick skin. Yeah.
Yeah, but also that's really interesting though, is that you've just got to go and be yourself. I mean, you've got to do that with podcasting, and you've got to accept that some people are going to like it and some people aren't. But that's the same with podcasting, is that you will never appeal to everyone, so you just accept that. But I suppose it's the same with public speaking as well, isn't it? But I guess as you build a brand as well, is that if people know that you are a bit sarcastic, then they're probably going to accept it more as well. It's so interesting talking about this stuff with you, Patricia. It really is. It's like, tell me about Gallery of Ideas, though, because it plays perfectly into this whole point that I was saying about between you being a speaker and an event organizer. So just tell us a little bit more about how you've used your experience in what you've built with that.
Well, the Gallery of Ideas project was born in 2016 here in Barcelona. And the first place that I pitched was the Mobile World Center. And the first day I went there and we talked, and they just fell in love with the project because it was born based on inspiration. So for me, I've been always a big fan of big minds and brilliant minds. And being in Brazil with the humble backgrounds that I had, I didn't have access to big schools, big names. I couldn't be around people. And before the internet, obviously you couldn't access all these brilliant brains that we have today on the internet, so you can just listen to them everywhere, right? So for me, it was a big thing. When I was able to find someone with a big mind, I was like, oh, please teach me everything you can. So Gallery of Ideas was born to be a place where people that are already inspiring would look at other people over there and get inspiration from. Because what happens with these people like Tony Robbins, all these big mentors, they need also to find people that inspire them, right? Who inspires these people? Where are they? Where are the people that inspire the big minds, the big brains? So that's Gallery of Ideas, a place where everyone that is in there, it's a brilliant minds for me. All the audience, the speakers, we are in the same kind of level, and we're just exchanging a little bit of inspiration. So that's, but it all revolves around public speaking. Yeah, public speaking, storytelling, and branding, marketing. Yeah, everything that we need to do in order to succeed. Yeah, in business and in life in general.
I think it's really interesting though, because you've got so much experience that you've clearly brought that into being able to do both sides of this, and it shows that with events, you know, some events that you can go to can be frankly painfully boring, but if you know what it's like to be a speaker and you've been around the industry, you know what works, don't you? And if you deliver that, then people come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I liked it and I innovated here in Barcelona with these events, it's taking the public speaking events out of conference rooms and out of hotels. So I picked these places, these venues that was so crazy. The second venue we had was the Café del Mar, a very famous nightclub, scene in Ibiza. And then they opened one right here in front of my house in Barcelona, huge space with a huge stage, a concert stage where all the DJs and the big singers and everyone in the scene would come and play. So I went there to the owner and I pitched the event for public speaking on that space. And I said, what if we could have this entire place of 1,000 people full of brilliant minds, in business entrepreneurs and all these people here, instead of just taking these people to a hotel? And they loved the idea and we did the event there. So
I think
that's also what it takes. You have to innovate, always innovate.
Yes.
Public speaking doesn't have to be something boring, it has to be exciting and why not glamour and party and beautiful, why not?
Yeah, there was another person that's invited me to come and talk about podcasting again, and it's in Spain, if COVID obviously disappears, but it's in a vineyard actually in the sort of cellars. And I thought, how interesting. Again, it's not just a bland hotel room. It's actually amongst all the barrels, there. And I was like, wow, what a great place. I mean, the acoustics will probably sound awful, but it's like, yeah, I'd do it. Why not?
Well, if you come into Spain, you have to come to Barcelona.
Oh, I will be on my way. I will be on my way, definitely. Patricia, I so appreciate what you've said to us today. You've got so much experience, and I really, really value your time. So thank you so much for coming on. I would love to check in with you once I've done this as well, once I've done this virtual talk, and sort of feed back to you what I've got from this and get your thoughts on that and how podcasters can use that as well as to whether to go on that journey or not as well. I mean, I might find I do it and I find it's absolutely terrifying and go, never again, but at the same time, I might go, this is awesome. Every podcaster should do it. So I would love to bounce some ideas off you again once I've done it as well. I'd really like to.
Please do. And good luck with your first speaking engagements, and let's see.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Thank you so much for your time. So you've been watching Can I Make a Hit podcast. As always, it's on audio at the usual place. You can find the website canimakehitpodcast.com. You can find it on YouTube if you're watching this particular video, or listen on audio as you are now. Plus, of course, social media as well. I'm on Twitter in particular at Hit Podcast 2020. That's at Hit Podcast 2020, where I'm doing updates all the time. Got a couple more interviews coming up on public speaking as well before I do that talk, and I will tell you all about the things I learn in this process of doing public speaking, as I say, and of course lots more about podcasting coming up after that as well. I will speak to you very soon.